The morning was still, blanketed by a thick layer of gray clouds that turned Maple Avenue into a watercolor painting washed-out homes. Pale hedges and sidewalks damp with yesterday's rain. Ava Monroe adjusted the strap of her duffel bag across her chest and slowed to a walk, letting her breath settle after her morning jog. She liked to jog early, before the noise of the world woke up, before the stairs started, before she had to brace herself. As she passed the corner bakery, she noticed the man arranging the signboard out front. He gave her a tight-lipped smile, more caution than kindness, and angled the board slightly away from her path. She nodded politely, as she always did, then kept walking. Ava knew these streets. She had lived here for 6 years, owned her condo, paid her taxes, volunteered at the community garden. But still, every morning felt like starting from zero, like she had to earn her right to simply exist here. Again and again, her running shoes tapped steadily along the pavement. A soft breeze fluttered the hem of her sweatshirt, her hair pulled into a low bun was still damp with sweat, and her earbuds played a soft jazz instrumental. But she wasn't listening. Not really. A police cruiser turned onto Maple and crawled past her in the opposite lane. She didn't flinch. Not anymore. She had learned to meet their eyes briefly, not too long. To keep her posture open, but not confrontational. Hands visible. Gaze neutral. Every movement calculated, unconscious now, like breathing. The cruiser passed. She exhaled. Then it made a U-turn. A small stone dropped in her stomach. It rolled by again, slower this time. The tinted window on the passenger side lowered an inch. Her breath caught, then steadied. She kept walking, forcing her pace to remain even. Her heart betrayed her. They'd say it was just a routine patrol. Maybe it was. Or maybe she'd fit the description. She remembered the last time. The look on the officer's face when she dared to ask what she'd done wrong, as if her voice itself was the offense. Up ahead, the bus stop bench was empty, damp. She checked her phone. 7:03 a.m., a few minutes to spare. Behind her, the cruiser. Idled. She didn't turn around. The clouds seemed lower now. Heavier and then flash. Red and blue strobes reflected against the wet pavement. A spotlight beamed down on her back. Her shadow stretched long in front of her, warped and trembling. Stop right there. Hands where I can see him. Ava froze, her breath seizing mid-chest. She turned slowly, every muscle clenched. Her jog had ended. Something else was beginning. Ava raised her hands slowly, her palms trembling in the stark white of the cruiser's spotlight. The sidewalk beneath her feet felt like ice, though the morning was warm. Maple Avenue, her street, her neighborhood had turned into a stage, and she was no longer a citizen. She was a suspect. 2 officers emerged from the cruiser with measured aggression. One tall and stocky, with a buzz cut and flak vest riding high on his chest. The other was leaner, younger, jaw clenched like a loaded spring. They approached fast. "You live around here?" the taller one snapped. I do," Ava replied, swallowing hard. "I was just jogging." "Hey, we had reports of a burglary." "Suspect heading east." "You matched the description," the younger one said, circling to her side. "What description?" she asked, the panic rising in her throat. "I live 3 blocks down. I'm going to work." "Let me see some ID," barked the tall one. Ava slowly reached into her waist pouch and pulled out her driver's license. She extended it toward the officer, but he didn't take it. He looked at it, then at her, then gave a curt shake of his head, unimpressed. "Doesn't mean anything," he muttered. "What? What do you mean?" she began. "Turn around." "Hands behind your back," the younger one ordered. "Wait! Why?" Ava backed away a step. "I haven't done anything. Please, I don't understand," I said. "Turn around." Barked louder, reaching for her wrist. Instinct made her flinch. She yanked her arm back, and that was it. "Stop resisting." The tall one shouted, grabbing her shoulders. The other officer lunged in, twisting her arm behind her back as Ava cried out, "Wait! No, please!" "I'm not," she gasped as the first knee slammed into the back of her thigh. Collapsing her to the sidewalk, her face hit the cold concrete with a sickening crack. Pain bloomed across her cheek. She tasted copper. "I can't breathe," she sobbed. Please, please stop. Stop resisting. They echoed, as if reading from a script. One of them drove his knee into her back while the other forced cold cuffs onto her wrists. The pressure on her spine was unbearable. Her forehead scraped against the pavement. Blood pooled near her temple, mixing with tears. Across the street, a teenage girl held up her phone, recording. A neighbor peered out through their blinds. Someone shouted, "Hey, she didn't do anything!" But no one stepped forward. To the officers, she wasn't Ava Monroe Jucator, neighbor or daughter. She was a threat subdued, problem neutralized. They hauled her to her feet roughly. Her knees buckled beneath her, and she cried out again. Her vision blurred as blood dripped into her eye. She was shaking, disoriented, cuffed and cornered by reality. "I live here," she whispered, dazed. They didn't hear her. Or maybe they did, and it didn't matter. They shoved her into the back of the cruiser. The door slammed shut. The light flickered on the roof. The camera across the street kept rolling from behind the window's dark tint. She stared at the bus stop, still empty, still waiting. Just like she had been, just like she always had been. And from the depths of her anguish, something unfamiliar stirred, not just pain or fear, but rage. Quiet, coiled rage. In that moment, Ava Monroe disappeared behind police glass, her identity stripped, her body bruised. But something else was forming in her silence, something stronger than survival. The cruiser hummed around her like a cold metal cage. Ava sat slumped against the seat, wrists cuffed tight behind her back, the sting of blood drying on her temple. Her breathing had slowed, but her chest still ached with each inhale, every muscle raw, her dignity stripped and discarded on the pavement outside. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass of the window, trying to ground herself. They didn't know who she was. They didn't know that the blood they let spill on Maple Avenue came from a lineage carved in discipline, honor, and defiance. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, low and commanding. "You don't walk through this world invisible, Ava. You walk seen and you walk ready." General Richard Monroe didn't raise her to be afraid. He raised her to endure. He wore his medals like armor. But they weren't just symbols, they were shields he used to guard. His daughter against a world that would question her before it saw her. She remembered being 9 years old, standing at his retirement ceremony, her tiny hand swallowed in his. He wore his dress uniform, every crease perfect, every badge earned. When he spoke, the room fell silent, not just from respect, but reverence. He had taught her how to hold her back straight even when her spirit was bruised. "The world won't always recognize your worth," he used to say, "but you'd never let it make you smaller." Still, it was hard not to feel small. She had played by every rule, earned her degrees, wore neutral tones to interviews, smiled without showing too much teeth, let people call her articulate, like it was a compliment. And yet she thought of the interview, where the manager said she seemed intense for a role in HR, of the luxury boutique where a clerk shadowed her for every aisle, sparing into her earpiece as Ava pretended not to. Notice, of the team meeting where a colleague laughed and said, "We better let Ava handle the angry email, she's got that resting, angry black woman vibe, right?" Everyone had laughed, even her boss. She had smiled too, because what else could she do? She had survived it all quietly, carrying the weight of being the only in so many rooms. It's the only black woman. It's the only voice they have heard. The one they looked to for insights on diversity, but never on leadership. But nothing, not the code switching. The credentials. Not even the calm way. She said please had shielded her from the hands that had slammed her into concrete. Her jaw tightened. She turned her face from the window, the reflection of herself fractured in the tinted surface. They didn't know who she was. But maybe in truth, neither did she anymore. Because if dignity meant silence, and survival meant shrinking, then what was left of the woman her father raised? Outside, the cruiser pulled into the police station lot. Officers moved past like shadows. Indifferent, Ava clenched her fists inside the cuffs. Something in her chest burned, not just from pain, but awakening. She wasn't invisible anymore, and she wasn't done. By the time Ava was processed, fingerprinted, photographed, and quietly Released, the son was long gone. No charges, no explanation, no apology. Just a paper with her name, a blank box where offense should have been, and bruises blooming across her back like dark petals. She stepped out of the precinct alone, clutching the hospital discharge forms. They gave her, just in case. Back in her apartment, she didn't speak. Not to the nurse who checked on her, not to the neighbor who offered soup, not even to the blinking phone on her nightstand. That night, the video surfaced. A shaky, vertical clip uploaded to Twitter by a teenager with the caption, "They tackled her for jogging. Maple Avenue. Share this." By morning, it had gone viral. 10 seconds of footage, 3 million views. Activists reposted it. News anchors dissected it. Her face was blurred, but not well. Someone recognized the red hoodie from Ava's LinkedIn profile photo. Another matched the street to her known address. And then came the storm. Emails, DMs, calls from journalists. Protests outside the precinct. A petition. Hashtags with her first name. But Ava stayed silent. She sat at her kitchen table in that same red hoodie, his phone in her lap, afraid to touch it. Then came a call she couldn't ignore. Her father, R. "You all right?" General Monroe's voice cracked like a rifle shot. It was the only sign he was human. "I'm fine," Ava whispered, staring at the ceiling. "It's just bruises. I don't mean your body." Silence stretched. She heard him inhale. Measured. Controlled. The way he used to breathe before walking into a war room. "I saw the video," he said. "I know what they did to you," she flinched. "It's already too loud, Dad. Everyone's screaming, but nobody's listening. You think silence protects you?" "I think speaking makes me a target," she snapped, finally looking at her phone. Notifications exploded across the screen like landmines. "They don't want me, Dad. They want a story. A face. Symbol. You're more than that." "I don't want to be anything," she whispered. "I just want to be." He paused. Then quietly, "They broke your body, Ava, but they won't break your voice." She blinked hard. "But it always costs us more. You know that. It always..." "Does I do?" he said. "That's why I've already called legal. Quietly. Strategically. You won't face this alone." Tears slid down her cheeks. She gripped the phone like a lifeline. Her father didn't speak for a moment. "Then, let me fight for you. But when you're ready, you fight for yourself too." When the call ended, Ava looked at her reflection in the dark window, bruised. Still here. Still hers, but not yet whole. 3 nights later, Ava sat in her living room with every light off. The TV was on mute. The news ticker still carried her name. Woman in viral arrest video identified. Ava Monroe. She hadn't left the apartment. Except for one thing, her doctor's appointment. Cracked ribs. Mild concussion. Acute stress response. The nurse had gently asked if she wanted to report the incident. Ava stared at her like she was speaking another language. What would be the point? Each night, Ava startled awake, gasping, sweat-soaked, heart hammering. Flashbacks came in bursts. The scrape of concrete, the clank of metal cuffs, that sickening crunch as her cheek struck the ground. She avoided mirrors. Her body didn't feel like hers. On Thursday morning, a soft knock came at her door. She didn't move. Then a voice followed. Calm, warm, human. "Ms. Monroe, I'm Raina Porter. I'm here because you deserve more than silence." Ava opened the door slowly, bruises still visible beneath the hood she hadn't taken off in days. Raina stepped. Inside. Mid-40s. Afro pulled into a neat puff.
Oh.
Blazer, jeans, worn satchel slung across her chest. She didn't offer a business card. Just a seat and her time. "I'm a civil rights attorney," she said. "I saw the video, yes. But I've also seen how this goes." Ava didn't speak. Raina continued. "They'll frame it as a misunderstanding. Say you were uncooperative. Claim body cam footage is incomplete. Internal review will clear them unless public pressure forces more." Ava looked away. "What if I don't want more attention?" "I don't blame you," Raina said gently. "But the system counts on that. On fear, exhaustion, shame, especially when the victim is a black woman. That last part hit Ava like a whisper against an open wound. I'm not trying to push you, Raina added. I'm here because you deserve to know your options. Not as a symbol, as a person. Outside, the protests were growing louder. She'd watched from her window as crowds gathered with signs, Justice for Ava, Protect Black Women. She didn't know any of them. It felt like they were shouting about her. Not for her. Later that night, Ava watched another news clip. A young woman with a megaphone screamed her name into a sea of angry fists. Ava turned it off. She felt like a hashtag, cautionary tale used. She didn't choose this war, but it had arrived anyway. Raina's voice echoed in her mind. The system counts on you giving up. Ava stood in the dark, her ribs aching with every breath. Not ready, but no longer invisible. The podium was flanked by 3 flags: the state, the nation, and the army. Cameras flashed in bursts, lighting up the press conference like a battlefield. General Richard Monroe stood still behind the microphone, metals gleaming beneath the harsh lights. I have a statement, he said, his voice steady as steel. The woman in that video is my daughter. A collective murmur rolled through the press pool. Microphones tilted forward. She is a citizen, he continued, a professional, a person of dignity, yet she was brutalized in broad daylight. Not by strangers, by the very people sworn to protect her. He paused. Let the silence settle. I served this country for 35 years. I led troops through war. But I never imagined my own daughter would be assaulted on American soil. For jogging while black, he stepped away without taking questions. His message was not for negotiation. Within minutes, the story went nuclear. Headlines screamed, Army Chief's daughter beaten by police. Ava's face filled every feed, her bruises no longer hidden. The weight of her last name brought attention. It's more than she ever wanted. But attention was not transformation. That came days later. Under fluorescent lights in a crowded church basement during a community roundtable, fold-out chairs, cardboard coffee cups. People packed wall to wall, young, old, angry, hopeful. No teleprompters, no podiums. Just a folding table and a worn microphone passed hand to hand. When it reached Ava, the room quieted. She stood slowly, her hoodie gone, hair natural, the scar on her cheek still healing. She took the mic like it was heavier than it looked. I didn't want to be here, she said softly. I didn't want to speak. She glanced across the faces, expectant, exhausted, familiar. I was raised by a man who taught me to be proud and quiet. He thought if I was good enough, careful enough, educated enough, the world would treat me right. She swallowed, her voice sharpened. I did everything right. I was respectable, quiet, educated, and I was still brutalized. That's the truth. A few people nodded. Someone whispered, say that. Not here because I'm a general's daughter. I'm here because I'm a black woman who was told to lower her voice, soften her tone, smile more, and shrink lessonly to be tackled to the ground anyway. She let that hang in the air. I'm not a daughter of power, she said. I'm a daughter of pain you didn't want to see. Silence. Then applause. Then a chorus of voices rising, some clapping, others shouting affirmations. Ava didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just exhaled, the kind of breath that releases years of held and hurt. She passed the mic, sat back down, felt the room breathing with her now. In the back, Raina nodded quietly. General Monroe watched from the doorway, eyes glassy, arms crossed. Tightly, it wasn't pride on his face. It was something deeper. Recognition. His daughter was no longer just part of his legacy. She was building her own. It began with a press release: quiet, clinical officer Mark Delaney terminated for excessive force. Officer Tyler Reed placed on unpaid administrative leave pending further investigation. No apology, no admission. Just bureaucratic language meant to close a wound without cleaning it. But the city noticed. The movement noticed. Ava noticed. And she kept going. Weeks passed. Charges hadn't been filed yet, but the pressure hadn't let up. Raina stayed on the front lines, pushing legal paths. Forward Ava, though, took a different route closer to the ground, closer to the pain. She started showing up at community centers first quietly, then with intention. At Daughters Rising, a non-profit for women of color impacted by police violence, she listened to stories like hers, some worse, some quieter. All heavy, she ran. Workshops on self-advocacy, co-led healing circles. She taught high school girls how to use their voices with purpose. She showed them bruises faded but not forgotten. The headlines faded, but Ava's work deepened. Not louder, just stronger. One morning, a cloudy one like before, she laced up her shoes. The same gray hoodie, the same street, same stretch of cracked sidewalk where everything changed. Maple Avenue. She paused at the corner. The bakery man saw her this time, really saw her hand, gave a respectful nod. She nodded back. Her feet hit the pavement soft. Steady, she passed the spot near the bus stop, now painted with a mural of wildflowers and fists, done by local teens. Her name was stenciled subtly in the lower corner, barely visible unless you knew to look. As she ran, the clouds above began to shift. They didn't disappear, but thin lights slipping through and narrow beams that touched rooftops and trees. A quiet light. Her breathing deepened, ribs no longer tender, muscles loosened with each stride. A woman walking her dog smiled at her. Cyclist gave a small wave. Ava didn't need a spotlight, didn't need a trend. She needed only this: motion, air, ground beneath her, sky above her, and the space she had reclaimed. She didn't run to prove anything now. She ran because she could, because she belonged, because she endured, and because moving forward step by step, breath by breath, was its own quiet kind of justice. At the far end of the street, she stopped, looked up, a break in the clouds, a piece of blue sky, just enough. She smiled, not wide, not for anyone else, just for her. Then she turned and kept running.